Jugga jugga. Steam rising. True train rolling through the fog. We don't beg for light, we bring it. Raise your vibe. Find your tribe. I got dust on my boots and gold in my soul. Been walking through shadows, still staying whole. My voice is velvet, my truth is flame. I don't play small, I don't play tame. We rise, we roll, we recalibrate. We don't wait for love, we activate. Raise your vibe, find your tribe. Let your roots run deep, let your spirit ride. True train rolling, we don't divide. We lift each other up, we don't backslide. Got my council on deck, got my elders in mind. We speak in rhythm, we move in time. From the swamp to the stars, we claim our name. We ain't just survivors, we run this game. Chugga chugga heartbeats, drumline soul. We carry the stories that never get told. Raise the banner, light the flame. True train tribe, we don't play the same. Raise your vibe, find your tribe. Let your name be known, let your soul revive. We here to heal, we here to thrive. True train tribe, we electrify. Raise your vibe, find your kin. True train rolling, let the love begin.
Welcome everybody to the War Room. I'm glad everybody's here. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Please buckle up. Fasten your seatbelts. We're fixing to take off 30,000 feet. Complimentary peanuts to go around and popcorn. Hope everybody had an amazing weekend. Today is September 14th, 2025. We got a special guest with us tonight, Miss Sierra. We're going to be talking a lot about purification of the blood, right? I want to welcome Nadine and Bird Love and Gandalf. I hope y'all had a good weekend as well. So a lot going on in the world, but we're staying focused on the work that we need to do, and it's all within, and especially when in our bodies. So I want to open the floor up. Anybody got anything to say?
I had an answer to prayer last week. We had a couple of appliances that were dying on us, and we're just sort of praying through it, like we assuming that things will be provided as needed. And Lou got a call from a friend of hers that was downsizing, and she had exactly the appliances that we needed. Everything fit in the right hole in the wall and the space, and so I actually, my task list got cut in half. I don't have to order parts from China and pretend I'm a dealer for a dealer of washing machines or whatever to some guy. So that's everything got installed. No smashed fingers or toes. And I did 11 loads of laundry yesterday. So it was that's my weekend.
That's some work right there.
I've had a good weekend. I was telling backstage that I was having my own private chili cook-off today, and the whole house smells great, but I don't know what it tastes like yet. But I'm pretty sure, like Sierra was saying, it'll be really, really yummy tomorrow after it marinates. But happy to be here. Want to let everybody know that we're live on GAN's Facebook. I've checked the War Room on YouTube, and we're live there. We're also live on the War Room Rumble, and we're live on the Gandalf Library page. So we
And
are
that
everywhere tonight.
and that's the ROAR room, not WAR.
Right. Mickey says it best when she roars. So Nadine, how was your day?
Bud and I just went for a lot of walks, and I I've been everywhere with the. I have to look at Twitter or Facebook to see where I've been. I've been with Rod Beadle, Young Elder. I've been on Star Trek. I just go all over the place. Bird Love sent me to Star Trek last night.
I'm excited to hear about that. What you discovered. So back to you, Sheep. Do you want to introduce Sierra?
Yep, we'd like to welcome Sierra to the show. Sierra, she's going to be talking about the purification of blood. Am I correct? That's part of holistic, or what? Sierra, would you like to take it from here?
Well, we can definitely get into that. I want to set the stage for why do we even care or need to consider that, and what to do if we get into a situation where our own blood is not enough to serve our body's needs.
Awesome. Take it away. Like help.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I
Glad to have
did.
you here.
I was just, really honored to be a part of this. And I feel that my tribe has expanded now even more. And I'm very thankful to Kim. She's a local yokel with me. And, we already have a great community where we are, and now it's expanding. And it's just really wonderful to be a part of this.
Well, we
So
want to thank
I'm gonna,
Kim. I'm sorry. We want to thank Kim as well for making this connection for us today. So thank you, Kim. Mushroom Ladies, right? Sheepdogspets.com.
oh yeah, she
Go
is
ahead.
the mushroom lady. She is my personal mushroom lady. She's got me on the mushroom train. So, I'm trying to maybe share my screen. We'll see what happens. But, as mentioned before, I can pretty much ramble on, without sharing, the screen. So,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would,
Tom.
So this evening, let's talk about the reconciliation. And it's something that is talked about pretty extensively in the New Testament. Reconciliation, what is that? It's more than just saying, I think about my little children, when they get into an argument. Okay, say you're sorry. It's more than that. Reconciliation. Making the circle whole again, restoring the circle between you and yourself, you and God, you and your neighbor. So that's the bedrock of what this is all about with the blood. So let me jump into my personal background. I was a nurse in the system for over a decade. And I mostly have done mother, baby, maternity, warm, fuzzy, beautiful at times, but also war. And, in the medical system, I say I was helping people fight medical tyranny way before it got cool and people became aware. So within the realm of obstetrics, things have gone on that are really anti-human for a very long time. And that doesn't mean all doctors. That doesn't mean all hospitals or whatever. But many, many, many women will say that they want more ownership and more power and more control over their birthing experience. And that it's not a medical, it's not a medical event. That actually giving birth to a child is something way deeper than that. Duh. And that they don't just want to be put on a conveyor belt. So I tried to be the wrench in the gears for my patients. And I also served as a doula. So that is a woman who walks with women in childbirth and before they give birth, after they give birth, during the whole process, providing information so that the mom can make her own decision. The dad can make the decision with her for their family. A lot of what I do is grounded in advocacy and learning how to be your own advocate. I'm not here to be your savior. No doula should be there to be, your rescuer. You already have one of those. We're here to help you to speak into existence what you know in your heart and soul needs to come to pass for you to have this child birthed into the earth. That doesn't mean that there are not times where I may have to speak up on behalf of someone who, does not have a voice in that moment. Absolutely. But for the most part, it's not about, being a medical provider when you're a doula. It's about really supporting people in their own decision-making process, teaching them how to make their own choices, revealing to them what do they even value in the first place? What do they believe? Do they believe that birth is scary? Do they believe medicine is good? What are the things that form their belief system? And this, I find, applies also to chronic disease, health management, much broader topics. So when the COVID-19 pandemic began, I resisted. And for the longest time, I was able to stay afloat until I also refused to take PCR testing. Throughout the entire pandemic, I was able to just report my symptoms, take my temperature, and, just not come to work if I was sick. But then the same week that they did the mandate rollout, the penalization for not taking Maxine Waters, if you know what I mean. Not taking Miss Maxine meant that I would have to do double swabs every week, and I refused that, as it was just a penalty. The same week that I resigned, I was asked to work twice because of critical staffing shortages, and within 6 months, I was rehired back without having to do these things against my wishes. I was paid 3 times as much because that's how incredibly desperate they become for nurses. And finally, though, what got me out of the system was getting pregnant with my 4th child. And during that time, I was extremely anemic. And I had felt anemia before because in February of 2020, I had a pregnancy loss and I had to have a blood transfusion. And I knew that because of the extensive efforts, of course, that I'd already taken to not receive Miss Maxine into my life, that I certainly wouldn't want any backdoor entryways through oops, I had a hemorrhage or lost too much blood and wind up receiving a technology that is not in alignment with my belief system. So it put me on a journey that was really, really challenging because I was doing all the things that I thought I should be doing, and yet I was not making adequate blood to serve my needs. And my midwife was very dismissive, even though I would say she was a good midwife. She really just didn't know. She had what we call a knowledge deficit. So a little politically correct way of saying she really just did not know. And I had to really deep dive into anemia, understanding anemia, particularly in pregnancy, and why was I feeling so bad and why was I taking iron and not making blood? So that sent me on a trajectory to learn how to heal anemia, all the different methods and cofactors that you need in order to make blood. And it also sent me into wanting to access iron infusions. So through like an IV instead of just by mouth, since it was a gut problem, preventing me from being able to absorb the nutrients. And what I found was that nobody would help me. Even though this is something that's in the medical literature, this is something that's done commonly in other states. And in Europe, they treat you if you have a ferritin. So that's your long-term storage of iron. In pregnancy, they treat you with iron infusions starting at a ferritin of 30. That is considered absolute iron deficiency. So my ferritin level was a 7, and nobody was willing to help me. The only way I could establish care with one hospital system where I had a baby in 2021 during the height of the pandemic would not receive me back as a patient unless I signed a paper that said that I would only use providers that they pre-authorized me to visit with. And so that's illegal. Okay. You have a right as a patient, regardless of whoever you're seeing, you have a right to a second opinion. That's one of those things. It was like, you can't fight all the wars that come to your doorstep, but the paperwork they wanted me to sign was just straight up illegal. You can't prevent someone from seeking a second opinion. Anyway, I felt like all of these doors and windows had been shut, and it was like as though I was in a tunnel, and the only way I could walk was straight and forward ahead. And I had total peace, even though I couldn't breathe very well. I was, overwhelmed at times with just caring for 3 children and being very pregnant and anemic. And it led me to hire a physician who supported my plan to bank blood from donors that I chose. So that is called a directed blood donation. And you have the right ever since let's see here. Well, when the HIV epidemic came out, the FDA cleared a pathway to help people select their own blood donors as a means of cocooning themselves against the potential for HIV transmission from the blood supply. So it's been around and in existence for a very long time. It's extremely well studied to be very, very safe. And it's not like you're just taking a needle from someone's arm and putting it in yours. I mean, it is very well established. So directed blood donors still must go through all of the same process in order to receive or give blood. as someone from the general public. So there's no difference in treatment of those people. And if something happens and they're not able to donate, you know, the recipient has no idea why. And it could be because they had alcohol to drink, or it could be because they were on cold medicine, or it could be because they, you know, visited a brothel. But that recipient is not going to have any idea why that person could not donate. So I say all of that to say directed blood donation is extremely well established, very long history of being safe. And yet now it's come under fire. And it's come under fire for pretty obvious reasons, I think, because the demand for directed blood donation has skyrocketed. As many people, you know, a third of the population decided not to receive Miss Maxine into their life. And so a third of the people who theoretically need transfusions also still do not want that technology unless it is an absolute life or death situation. So that leads me to where I wound up with my baby, was that I had multiple people who gave blood on my behalf, and we actually didn't even need it. And so everything went fabulous. And we instead just let other people at the hospital take that who needed it. It didn't go to waste. Somebody else needed it and got it. So it's all in all, I think, a beautiful process. We increase how many blood donors there are when we ask friends to be our donors. We increase the blood supply by doing so. And these are usually people who would otherwise not be donating blood, just statistically speaking. So out of this came a, you know, breadcrumbs from the Lord situation, where I just continued to be in a hall with the Holy Spirit in me. And he continued to introduce me to people that I needed to be introduced to. And I kept thinking, okay, I literally said, I just want to be like a vestigial apparatus here. I just want to fall off. Like, here, let me give the leadership of this movement for blood that has not been injected. Let me give the leaders of the movement some ideas on how to expand the blood supply. And I will just go back on my merry way as a mom of 4 and a aspiring midwife, and my happy little life in the Shire. Okay. And I've asked several times to please get off the ride, and God is like, it's okay. I'm with you. Just keep going. And what it's turned into is a full-scale advocacy apparatus, or, you know, you could call it a business, a grassroots movement. We are connecting the key people who need to be connected and stay connected to supply people with connections to other people. So in other words, there are things called safe blood registries, or mRNA uninjected people who say, hey, if you need help in a time of, you know, serious problems for you health-wise, reach out to me and I'll help you. I didn't invite Miss Maxine into my life, and I want to give my life force to you if you need it. And so those are registries. They're kind of like Facebook. And Facebook for people who, didn't take Miss Maxine to be their friend. And those are wonderful, but they're not a blood bank. Okay, so there is no, I cannot emphatically say it enough. There is no way to get blood in an emergency situation from someone who did not take Miss Maxine. So we are trying really hard to find a way to get emergent availability of blood in the United States. There is a fabulous group in Mexico and Ireland called Unvaccinated Corp. And they have, they offer different types of blood. So you can get mRNA-free blood, or you can get regular old, we don't have no idea, because it's not being recorded, it's not being labeled. And there is a humongous lobbying force against the labeling of the blood. So I've really enjoyed getting to help bring all of these different pieces of the pie together. And we go after, right now we're focusing really heavily as a group on legislative efforts. First and foremost, to protect people's right to directed blood donation. I have a question for you all. If you don't have a right to say whose blood goes into your body, what are you?
A slave.
You're a slave. A person who does not own their own body is a slave. And I was born free. I will die free. I will secure a future for my kids. We all have a future for them. We will not let them steal our future. And if you do not own your blood, you have no future. If you don't own your blood, you don't own your children. That's for sure. The system does. So it's more than the blood. It is of course, y'all know, it is a spiritual battle. But the blood sacrifice, and a lot of it is theft. A lot of it is taken through deception from us, harvested through deceptive practices. And some of it's willingly given, thinking that we're helping a stranger. But it is the fuel behind so much of the system. For example, a hospital in Minnesota was shut down here recently. Sorry, Missouri, not Minnesota, Missouri, because they could not access blood for transfusions. They had to shut their hospital down. That is how powerful this is. And we have a lot of significant barriers right now to getting access to blood that is free of technology that we don't agree with. I've said tons and tons and tons. I've brought up a whole lot of different pieces that we're after with legislation, creating a unified force against the blood establishment, I guess is what I will call it. But I'd like to, first of all, I've been seeing questions come in, and I just can't answer them as I'm on my little roll. But I think I got everything out now, and I'd really like to talk about some of these questions. I think there was a few, but I don't know how to go back and see them. Okay, I think I see that now. Okay, yes, Miss Maxine, yes. That's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. Someone says that their loved one, or no, they might need plasma, and they were told their family members could not give. Okay, so this largely depends on, unfortunately, your geographical location. So in Texas, Minnesota, and a few other states, it is impossible for you to access directed blood donors. This is not the state who has done that. Every single blood banker got together in the state of Texas on one day and announced in 2023 they would no longer offer the service of directed blood donation. There is no law prohibiting. So it's private and special interest. And I want you to, again, here's a question. Why do you think all the blood bankers who are in competition with one another got together on the same day to say they're not going to do it anymore? Anybody want to try?
Control.
That's a good one.
Keep the lie going.
Yeah. It's a money interest more than anything.
Well, of course.
When we give blood, they sell the blood to pharmaceutical manufacturers who take the blood and fractionate it into different parts and pieces to make drugs. One of these drugs, as you know, my background, mommy baby nursing, is Rogam. The Rogam injection is given to women in pregnancy or miscarriage, and after having the baby, if they have negative blood, so if you have A negative, B negative, O negative, okay, AB negative, you are going to be offered Rogam. And they're going to be pretty insistent that you take it. Rogam is a blood product. So that's just one example of a pharmaceutical derived from human plasma. When they sell it to a pharmaceutical company, they're able to get like about $1,200, $1,500 a pop. Whereas when they're selling our blood directly to a hospital for like a trauma victim, for example, who's, going into shock, they're selling it for around $500. Now this is give or take, depending on where you are in the States. That's a huge difference, y'all, between $1,200 and $500, give or take. So we're cutting into their bottom line. That's an extremely significant cut into the bottom line. And so the more that we look, there are documentaries that you can watch to understand more about the blood dealers and how they have such an intricate market of how to sell human blood and different components of it. So that's why they've all united, because we're stepping on their profit. Last year I started a legislative group of different vested stakeholders, helping with strategy, drafting legislation, and so forth. And we went on to Wyoming's hearing for a blood bill to protect directed blood donation. And I just about laughed myself to pieces at the representative there from Vitalent, the America's second largest blood harvesting organization, say, We're a non-profit organization. This is going to hurt us financially if we have this. I mean, they actually came right out and said it. And you can still see that. That's up in the public record on YouTube. So they admit that this hurts them. That when you say, I want to have so-and-so be my blood donor, that it's hurting their bottom line. And they basically, if I'm not mistaken, the American Red Cross made $2 billion last year alone. On blood alone is what I mean. So this is kind of a Leviathan versus David situation. And it is a very serious money motive. And they have a lot of money to throw at brainwashing physicians that they should not support people's right to say whose blood they receive into their body. They have taken a research article, and I don't want to be too boring here, but they're claiming it's not safe to do that. That's a part of their argument when they're not being honest and saying, we're a non-profit organization, this is going to hurt our bottom line. Then when they're actually telling the truth about that, other things that they have, I would say, seriously embellished. One such would be a research study on the safety of directed blood donation. They claim that it's far more dangerous to receive blood from someone that you know. And they believe this is far more dangerous because that person is more likely to lie to you because they don't want you to know about their dirty little secrets. The thing is, blood tests don't lie. And even if they lied on the screening questionnaires, blood tests are not going to lie. And they are over 99% accurate. You have less than a 1 in a million chance of receiving a tainted blood transfusion with HIV or Hep C in the United States. And yet, there's a research article that they use in order to justify this claim. But they do the little trick of using it as a secondary source. And then you have to keep on looking. Well, it's Dorsey et al. Looked at 4 million blood donations, 4 million blood donations. They had one group that was public donation to the general, hey, this is just a free will giving, anyone who needs it, take it. And the other group was smaller. It was only about 100,000 people or 200,000 people. And it was, this blood is designated for a specific person. And when they compared the group between specific person, which is called directed donor, versus the general population, what they found was that there was no significant difference in the blood from the two different groups, with the one exception of people who were directed donors had a more likely risk of screening the blood positively for Hep C. So this means, here's another question for y'all. If we screen the blood positive for hepatitis C, what do we do with the blood after that?
Continue to use it.
False.
You're kidding
We are
me.
going to.
It disappears down a destruction path and is unaccounted for. It's technically destroyed, but I have never really believed that.
What we're not going to do with it is inject it into a human being. Well, they can do all kinds of experiments. When you sign that release form, they can do whatever they want with your blood. There are people who think quantum, all kinds of quantum stuff is being done with blood and other can't even go into that tonight, but we do not inject people with blood that was screened positively for a pathogen. So that blood is no longer going to be used. Therefore, it really does not matter that, yes, we're talking about a statistically significant but absolutely small increased risk of screening positively for Hep C in directed blood donors. And I think that actually these people were not deceiving their loved ones, but didn't know they had the disease yet, y'all. You can get Hep C by living around somebody who has Hep C. You can get Hep C and not know. You generally, there's two main ways that people do get it, but it is very well recorded that some people have no idea how they caught it, and they don't have the lifestyle issues that lead to it. So this actually served those folks as an early warning detection system for them, while increasing the general blood supply by 100,000, 200,000 people that would have otherwise not donated if their loved one hadn't been like, hey, I want you to give me blood. Were you going to say something, sheepdogs?
Yeah, my dad had gotten into a car accident back in the 90s, and he had a blood transfusion. He ended up with hepatitis C, and then a few years later, he passed away from that.
I'm so sorry to
Just
hear
say-
that.
No, it's a learning experience. So it just came to my mind just now. I was like, oh wow, hold on. All right, that's all.
Yeah, so it's really hitting hard. It's extremely rare. And I don't know what they were doing in the 90s, if it was the same thing that we're doing now, but they've gotten really good at figuring out how to not inject people with tainted blood. That would be the earlier part, or the later-ish. That would probably be right when stuff was really getting scary with Hep C and HIV in the blood supply. So that's if you are told that you cannot receive blood from a loved one, here's what you do. Number one, you actually really do not want blood from a family member. Okay, that is true. That is because you are more likely to have a reaction to the blood and reject the blood. And instead of rejecting just the donor's blood, you're going to reject your own blood too. Graft versus host disease is fatal, and you're way more likely to get that from a relative who gives you blood, because they're just their blood cells and your blood cells are too similar. So you want to get out of your gene pool. Even a woman taking blood from her husband, especially if they may still have children together in the future, it should just be avoided. The way around that is that they could radiate the blood, but now you're putting irradiated blood into your body. The better way would be, I think, a friend or someone, a friend of a friend who has your blood type. And again, this is all very regulated. Not that we put a lot of trust into the FDA. I call them the Federal Death Administration, but they do have they still have to follow all the same rules and regs that the general donors follow. So if you are in a position where you need blood and you want to take it from someone who isn't friends with Miss Maxine, if you know what I mean, then you can look for Clean Blood Registry. I tell people about the main two that have been incredibly amazing collaborators, and that's Safe Blood and Blessed by His Blood. There are some other ones, Pure Blood and Health Freedom, but they are really just lists Okay, they're just lists of people. So another way to do this is get people together in your friend group. If you have a Liberty group, if you meet with other people, if you have a church, whatever it is, if you have a homestead group, if you go to a drop for Azure Standard groceries, whatever, you find like-minded people physically around you, it's $8 to buy a blood typing Eldon card from Amazon. And it'll tell you what your blood type is, if you're positive or negative. And know what your blood type is, and have a agreement with your buddies that, hey, these are the O's, these are the A's, these are the negatives, these are the positives. That's even more important than the type is the RH factor, positive or negative. So there's lots of ways to do this, or you can just use a registry. A lot of people want to be a donor only, and just get their foot in the door. That's free with Safe Blood. To just like hang their shingle and say, hey, this is my blood. If you need it, it's yours. But I've taken kind of a long spiel to get to the point of saying, but dude, just don't need a blood transfusion, okay? Because your blood is, the life is in the blood. If you have weak blood, you don't have strong life. You don't have strong vitality. What the church used to call, veritas, life force, green energy is what like Saint Hildegard called that. So, then we call it chi or prana in other, faith traditions and healing systems. But the life is in the blood. And a broken spirit dries the bones. A broken spirit dries the bones. Your blood's made in your bones. It's all there in the scriptures of how to keep your spirit healthy and your body will be healthy. As your soul prospers, so also will the temple of your spirit prosper. So, what research echoes here in recent times is that, if you're producing high amounts of cortisol, you're not going, which is a stress hormone, you're not going to absorb iron from your diet. You will have dried blood from, a broken spirit or, a super high stress level. So, getting back to the person who says that they might be in need of plasma twice a week. Plasma is getting a little bit trickier because you're needing it to be actual. You're going to have to go to a place that actually obtains the plasma right then and there. You're getting into blood dealer turf. There are some hospitals that will do that, but usually this is an outsourced situation. So if your doctor is saying no, simply because, you're going to have to prod them for, tell me more, you're saying that I can't get blood from a family member to make plasma or a plasma donation from them. Can you tell me more about why this is your medical opinion for me? And really open-ended questions about why. And hopefully you haven't spilled the beans about your reason why. I tell people, always say your reason is because you have deeply held religious beliefs. Okay, because they're going to argue with you about the research, they're going to argue with you about safety and all of that. And none of that really, if it's because you've decided that you didn't want to take the jab, you didn't want Miss Maxine, then that's where, that's a deeply held religious belief. No one can argue with your deeply held religious convictions. If they do, they're a fool, and they're looking at a lawsuit. So just don't bring it up. I'm not telling you to lie, but I'm telling you to use strategy to protect yourself because you're in a war. And if you want to fight, that's one thing. But if you want to get the blood that you need, that's another thing. So the first thing is deeply held religious convictions. Ask open-ended questions. Dig into more about why is this not an option for you, and start finding alternatives. There's something called Centers for Bloodless Medicine. And it turns out that, and we can thank the Jehovah's Witnesses for this whole subspecialty of medicine, because they are like, I will not receive that. I would just go on to the next life. And a group of docs got together in recent times and decided that they wanted to offer alternatives to blood transfusions to their patients. And wouldn't you believe it, that it's actually more better for you? It is way more evidence-based, way healthier to avoid blood transfusions from other people. Duh. You're less likely to have an infection. You are going to stay at the hospital for a shorter amount of time, and you're less likely to return to the hospital. These are all things that the federal government says that they're not going to reimburse, Medicare and Medicaid patients that get quick readmissions. They're not going to reimburse. Dude, if you get infected at the hospital, your hospital ain't getting paid for that if you have Medicare or Medicaid. Okay? They screwed that up. So they got to pay for it, is the government's stance on that. So it's extremely evidence-based. It's going to save tons of money. And their approach to bloodless medicine and surgery is so common sense, it's going to blow your mind. Fix anemia before surgery. Examine their blood. What is the hemoglobin? What's the hematocrit? What's the ferritin level? Remember, hemoglobin is like your circulating ability to carry oxygen. Ferritin is your long-term iron storage. And ferritin is completely overlooked in our country for some reason. Blood health is completely overlooked and just not dealt with. Well, I'll tell you, it's not for some reason. It's because your physician does not treat you unless they can bill your insurance. The World Health Organization sends CPT codes down the pike through the American Medical Administration or Association, AMA, and just keeps going down until you're in the patient room. That's why they don't treat you, because they don't have a way to get money. That's why they say, take ferrous sulfate, 325 milligrams once a day, get out of my hair. Unless you are in need of a transfusion. That is all that they will do for you, almost always. Sometimes you'll have a good doctor who's like, oh, you feel really, really bad when you're anemic. Here, let me help you get an iron infusion. There are doctors who are doing that in the United States, but for the most part, no. Unless there's something they can bill your insurance for, is my point. They're not going to. So getting back to Centers for Bloodless Medicine, correct the anemia before you have the surgery. If there's any way possible, don't take tons and tons of blood as a sample. Take the smallest amount of blood possible. As a OB nurse, we would draw something called a rainbow on admissions on women. And that would be all the color tubes. If you see that they're drawing a ton of tubes, it's okay to ask, hey, what's the smallest amount of tubes that you can do this? They may have to call someone else to figure this out, but have them call. That's your blood. Your body works really, really hard. If you're already anemic, your body worked really hard to make that. It's okay to say, you know what? I want to make sure that you take the smallest amount of blood possible. The other thing that they do is cell salvage machines or cell savers. During surgery, they can actually recycle your blood and reinfuse it back into your body so that you're not taking other people's blood. The safest blood transfusion is blood from yourself. So if you need blood, bank ahead of time your own blood. If you have a surgery coming up, if you have a procedure, correct your anemia, bank your own blood. If you have any Canadians in your audience, I am so sorry. Your country does not allow you to even bank your own blood. They hate you so much. They hate you so much, from the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, trickling down tyranny onto these people. They won't even let them take their own blood. It just is sickening. And that's new. That's new since the pandemic. So Centers for Bloodless Medicine and surgery, you could, if you have means, if you're someone with money and you can actually schedule yourself to see a doctor there and have surgery there, or have other medical care done, then shop around. You know, don't limit yourself just because this is the person, this is the doctor that you got put with your insurance company, doesn't mean that you have to stay there.
Can I add something to your rant here, Sierra?
Absolutely.
So there is a machine that was really put into practice about 20 years ago. It's called a Da Vinci device, and it allows surgeries to be arthroscopic, which means the incisions get much smaller. Smaller the incision, the smaller the blood loss amount. The other, and this is not medical advice. This is just fitness advice, right? I'm not a doctor, but I can play one on my channel. So I do come from a medical background in my family, and I have been in the doctor management and support business for about 30 years. So I've seen, and I understand CPT coding very well, Sierra. You're on point there. It's all about the dollars. But one of the other things you can do if you do have to have a surgery, the best thing to do is not have the surgery. Use physical therapy, use your body's ability to balance itself. Chakra is real. And if you're out of balance, you are going to be in an environment where if you do have available insurance dollars, because you've been a good citizen or a good debt slave, then they're going to spend all that money, and surgery is expensive. You're paying as much as $10,000 a day in total fees during surgery days. And it's just a bunch of equipment in a room with people. It's not magic devices, right? So making sure your potassium level is increased. Eat high potassium foods a week before any surgical engagement. Your brain runs on a combination of glycolated sugar through your liver, potassium, and cholesterol. The whole cholesterol thing is also I do not believe the narrative, and it's part of our long-term care and old age eradication. I'm trying to be careful with my words on Facebook. So if you do have to have, one of our team members went through this last year, and I was like, there's no such thing as minor surgery. That's what my father, the physician, always used to say, and he was also a surgeon. There's no such thing as minor surgery, and the first rule is you keep the blood inside the body. Keep the blood inside the body. Don't let it leak out, and keep your system functioning within itself. I agree with Sierra that the best thing to do, the best surgery to have, is not a surgery. So if you can avoid it, great. If you can't, then attempt to make sure that the surgery has an arthroscopic available option. There's 4 or 5 ways to skin a cat when it comes to taking out a scalpel. So arthroscopy leads to a much smaller blood loss engagement or potential blood loss engagement. And banking up your own blood and having them combine that for extension with high saline pH is the best possible option. And make sure your system is banked up. You're hydrated, cellularly hydrated with distilled high pH water. Your potassium level is as high as you can get it, because if you do go into arrest during surgery, cardiac arrest, and your potassium level is too low, they can't hit you with the shockers. It doesn't work. The potassium has to do with the electrical engagement of your blood itself, and your heart is an electrical device that creates a spark every time it beats. So it's called an electrocardiogram, an EKG, for a reason. So that my point is that your potassium level has to be up if you are going into an environment where you could go into arrest, which happens under anesthesia. It's a very risky business, the anesthetic side. So high potassium level, bank your own blood, and if you've got insurance money, spend it. Get the best doctor that you can. I talk to patients that he has had before. Make sure that they're still breathing and that they've had a great outcome at the end of the process. The thing that Sierra is hinting at here is that you have to take a different stance when you walk into the physician. The physician is not the boss. I mean, I'm sure Sierra can rail about this for about 16 days straight with her experience in rooms, but the doctor is not the boss of you, and he doesn't know what's best for you. He's trying to match up CPT codes with actions in practice so that he can get his super bill, which is 80% Medicare, Medicaid of the billing for most average practices, so he can get the biggest check possible. And that involves the, inviting Maxine into your waters of your blood, all the way down the line. So taking control of your health is first about having an understanding of what your health issue is. So the blood of us is the contract. Our salvation is paid for by Christ with a blood fulfillment on the cross. So this is a very important topic. Post 4966 says, watch your DNA. It is very important. And your DNA lives your blood supply is the electrified action of your DNA. I'll step off my soapbox and give you the floor back, Sierra.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. All of those things. Just don't need a surgery. There's so much going on, and in the world of health that's not controlled by big pharma. People, look, I'm not here to vilify anybody. It's just that there are technologies, there are ancient traditions that can really restore people. There's new things that can really restore people, and there might be 10,000 of them for one problem, which could be really overwhelming. But like chiropractic care for your back, a lot of people can feel way better. There's just so much. So, but to stay on focus with anemia, what to do if you need a surgery, if you need a transfusion, or have an anticipated need. If you find that you're pregnant, this is the most common thing that I help people with, is that they find, oh, great, we're going to have a baby. And they know that they want to protect themselves regardless of if they took Maxine or not. I help people who have taken Maxine who don't want to get it again. And that's where the reconciliation thing comes in, y'all. I'm going to get on this for a moment, is that the very last thing in the world that we need is this idea of the clean versus the unclean. Dude, we've been there. We've done that. Let it go, okay? The chosen people and the unclean. Let it go, all right? If you're still vibing with that, let's look a little bit deeper, because I'll tell you a story about personal severe pain, personal severe loss, persecution in a small town, persecution from my own blood, from my own relatives. No more family Christmas dinners, no invitation to graduations, broken hearts where we should have connections over the stupid Maxines. And if you haven't made an intentional act of forgiveness toward those people, I want you to just take a moment right now and take a big deep breath and purpose it in your heart that you can forgive them. You can forgive the people who persecuted you. You can forgive the people who continue to perhaps persecute you, whether that's loved ones or employers or the hall monitor type person from the grocery store who finally got a taste of power for the first time in their lives so that they could tell you to pull your mask up. You may have a Rolodex. Okay, for your younger listeners, a Rolodex was this thing that we wrote down people's names and numbers on, and then we would put them in this alphabetical order. And then when we wanted to find their name, that's how we could flip through really quick. Okay. You may have a ton of people's pictures in your mind right now that persecuted you through the pandemic. And write them down. Purpose it in your heart. Move their picture from your mind into your heart space and say, I forgive you. Because so long as you carry that burden of pain from the persecution, you will be prisoner to it. So long as you carry bitterness in your heart, you will be the victim of that bitterness. Christ came to make all things new. They don't have to ask for forgiveness. Just like Christ came without us asking. He came anyways, while we were yet still sinners. And this is your opportunity in a small way to do that same thing to those people. Now, I'm not talking about principalities here, okay? We're not talking about these bigger entities. I'm talking about individual people. Let it go. Really spend time on this, folks. This is not a little thing. This is something you may have to pray and meditate on a lot. You may even find that you have some sort of issues going on in your gallbladder or liver, holding on to anger and pain. And that when you feel a little pain in your body, that might be an invitation from your spirit to pray and say, I forgive you, so-and-so. I know from personal experience, this has helped me. I've seen other people be transformed radically through this practice. And that's what the reconciliation is about. Okay, it's not about us versus them. It's not about the purebloods versus, look, man, pureblood sounds really cute, cool. It's not true. Okay, none of us is pure, dude. But him who gave the ultimate blood transfusion for us to live, he's pure. And the way that works is through forgiveness. Not because these people are asking you to forgive them or deserve it, dude, but because you are a vessel of that light, of what Christ did for us on the cross. We can now turn around and do that to one another. That's called the ministry of reconciliation. It's not just going in the confessional and spilling your guts to the priest. Like, that can be really helpful. That is a great system that you can do. You can go in your closet alone and do that. I'm not talking about the sacrament of confession. I'm talking about, or the sacrament of reconciliation. I'm talking about the ministry of reconciliation. We have that opportunity with this right now, because my friends, this is a war. Their weapons are Maxines. This is a war. Anyone who would do something to you against your war has violated you. That is called violence. And there will be bloodshed, but let's give it willingly. That's my message. I didn't abstain from Maxines because I hate people and I want them to, what's that, unlive themselves, but because I love, actually, them. And I love my children, and I love the image of God that's locked in my blood. I truly believe that God has imprinted his image in our blood. And that is a part of why I absolutely refuse mRNA-based technology. I will absolutely refuse CRISPR technology, the gene editing. That is to wipe out the image of God. I really, really believe. But again, getting to the bedrock of this message, let it go. If you didn't receive Maxine, this is on you. If you're like, and here's again, like you're harboring in your heart, well, I'm not going to give it to someone who did that. Okay, check yourself, go look in the mirror and say it again. Are you angry? Are you harboring that bitterness? Because it's going to kill you. It's going to turn into cancer. It's going to turn into liver failure or fatty liver disease or gallstones. So, yeah, it's just going to eat you away. So anyway, reconcile yourself, and we need uninjected blood in mass. And we're hoping uninjected blood is less spike protein in it. We're hoping for a test to be able to say, did you know there is still no test? There's no test. You cannot quantify how much spike protein's in your blood yet. We're 5 years out. It's like a total playover from the HIV epidemic. That's how long it took for them to start getting real tests to be able to see if someone had this disease or not. And spike protein causes pathology. Spikeopathy is extremely real. Long COVID is very real. And yet we don't have a way to grade how severe your disease is. We can't count the proteins in people's blood. What they're doing is counting antibodies, which is like looking in a mirror upside down and backwards to try and figure out how much spike you have. So that's a huge call for a need, whether it's to verify the safety of a blood transfusion or whether it's to see, progress that you're making in beating long COVID or whatever it is. We need to be able to quantify how much spike is in your blood. So, that's a huge piece. And it'd be nice to have a test to be able to see if people had the vaccine or not. And we can only hope that those things are soon to become mandated. But right now, there's very powerful people who are operating every single bit of political and economic machinery in this country that is remaining in order to fight those very things from occurring. So what else can we talk about? Healing anemia and blood health. Would that be fun? What do you guys want to talk about now? Do you have questions?
Yeah, we had a couple of questions in the chat real quick. Let me put them up for you real quick. There's one. I don't know if you were able to answer this, but still give it a try.
Blood. Okay, so we need to get to the root of why are you having super low blood pressure? Are you an incredible athlete, or do you have some sort of autonomic dysfunction going on? Autonomic dysfunction is your nervous system that you're not necessarily in control of. Auto, self-regulating nervous system. Why are you having super low blood pressure? Are you dehydrated all the time? Are you not eating enough protein to cause this thing called oncotic pressure to happen in your blood vessels, where you fill up your blood vessels because the water is attracted to the protein? And what's going on? Are you not eating enough salt? And salt is not just sodium, it's potassium. So potassium would be, here's where I would start with that. Start eating yellow and orange vegetables every day. This is your new goal. Eat a yellow or orange vegetable every day. We're talking about mostly squash, hard winter squashes, mangoes, stuff like that, stuff that's going to potentially help you with just regulating and harmonizing your blood pressure. Yeah, start with that. Yeah, shedding is very real. And it, I believe, does affect the blood. And this is where we start getting into murky waters. Because it's like, well, if shedding is real, then there is no uninjected blood, but there is. So let me tell you a little bit about the research that my friends are doing around the world. One is from the Unvaccinated Blood Bank. They have an algorithm where they can tell if someone has been injected or not. It's over 99% effective. The algorithm is applied to a person's complete blood count called a CBC. Okay, if you've ever had an annual wellness exam, you've had a CBC drawn. Okay, this is what's going to tell you like hemoglobin, hematocrit, and the white blood cells. So it has to be a CBC with diff. So it's going to show the difference of the white blood cells in your body. And what they see with that is that the white blood cells shift in relationship to one another. So maybe instead of having a 1-to-4 ratio, now there's an 8-to-1 ratio. Okay. I don't know the algorithm, but in Mexico, for example, everyone who took the vaccine had to be registered. And so they have multiple ways of going through and verifying. Someone says they didn't have the vaccine. They examine the registry. The registry says no vaccine. They do the CBC. They use the algorithm. Boom. That'll also confirm over 99% of the time, no vaccine. So what does that mean? Okay, so there's a shift in the white blood cells. So what? All right, if your white blood cells are working, you're not going to get cancer, guys. Okay? If you get sick, you're not going to go down hard. Your white blood cells come out and they know what to do. They're your stormtroopers. They're your what I tell my children is that they're your white knights in shining armor who come and slay the beasts, the dragons inside of your blood. They do war for you. They see, they can identify a cancer cell and mark it as needing to be destroyed, haul the detritus to your lymphatic system, and then you eliminate it. You do this every day. So it's a big problem that our white blood cells are not working in ratio to one another the way that they used to. It's not just our red blood cells that have been affected, like, bleeding too much after, being shed upon and stuff like that. But it's, there is not a shift in shedding that we've been able to observe yet to the white blood cells. So there's other issues like with coagulation problems, potentially with shedding, but we're not seeing the white blood cells change. So I don't know what that means. Maybe in 10 years, it's all going to be the same. Maybe in 3 years, it's all going to be the same. Everybody's going to have the same shifts going on. I don't know. But what we see right now, the precautionary rule is first, do no harm. Okay. Take reasonable measures to protect yourself. Even if shedding is going on, it's very reasonable to still want someone who did not receive vaccine, because you do not, there's a risk of the unknown there. And we can observe differences. There's another scientist out of Florida who was enlightened by the Holy Spirit straight up as a clinical physician to start tracking all of her patients' white blood cells in a much more deep capacity, tracking CD4, CD8, different white blood cell types specifically that are also impacted or implicated in immunodeficiency syndromes, such as like HIV. And she's seeing people who got the vaccine, major shifts in CD8 and CD4. So though in HIV, it's just CD4 is impacted, and there's a shift that happens. But with what's going on right now, post vaccine, they're both impacted. So it's potentially worse than HIV. We just don't know enough. We don't have enough data. So anyway, it's reasonable to go on ahead and take the step. And it's like Pascal's wager. Okay, so what if we're wrong? You're doing this thing, you're getting blood from someone that has not received vaccine. So do you, the worst thing that can happen is, well, you got a blood transfusion from someone that you knew. Whereas if you took from the general population, from someone who received vaccine, then for sure that you've come in contact with this with this technology. I hope that made sense. I saw some more questions.
Yeah, let me look. So we got this one.
Deeply held religious beliefs work for my daughter's high school. So what I would do for your daughter, Tony, is print out the fact that they can't get federal funding if they're mandating COVID vaccines anymore. So that's, that's just a statement of fact. It's a executive order. In deeply held religious beliefs, unless you live in New York or California, I think Maryland, there's 6 different states that you're going to have a more challenging time with. You have to research your state. The more that you dive into vaccines of all variety, then the less that you want your child to do them. At least in my experience, that's the case. It's the Constitution, and very, very few states. Like I said, there's only 6 that don't allow for religious belief exemptions. Look up your state. Always go that direction, folks, because we have the Constitution. In other countries, they could not do this. They do not have the Bill of Rights. There you go. So only 16 offer philosophical. What would cause potassium to drop real low all the time? You can be taking like loop diuretics, for example. If you're taking pharmaceuticals or maybe even some supplements could be displacing potassium. You need a ton of potassium, like a ton. It's in relationship to other salts in your blood. So, my guess is that you're taking a diuretic. And, I don't know, you need a consultation with someone who can help you specifically. Did you want to add into that, Gandalf? You were talking about it earlier.
So potassium is one of the only compounds that cannot be actively infused. So if I'm in the middle of a surgical operation and I've got an issue with my potassium levels are low and I go into a rest, then you're baked. I hope you saw Hawaii when you still could. The potassium needs to be slow. It's an absorbing compound set, and it has to come through all the stuff in your sac. There's a sac of stuff in the center of you that holds all of your primary components and keeps the pressure of your system enabled. That's why blood pressure is such an important component of this discussion. So your potassium level is one of the indicators of the balance in your system between naturally glycolated sugar, not simple sugars or white sugar that's in one of the wonderful things that we love to eat that's horrible for us. Sugar is a very important part of this process. So your internal levels, potassium is one of those standards. It's like you can't make the equation of healthy, electrochemically engaged blood without the correct potassium level. It is a conductor of the quantum interfacing of your blood and your heart and the electrochemical engagement that happens every time your heart beats. It is you cannot stress the importance of potassium as primary components of your diet and the ability to not engage with things that will hurt your potassium level. Not sleeping well. Actually, cortisol and potassium are sort of kissing cousins in this equation. So thanks for triggering me, Sierra. Yes, potassium is important. I agree.
Yeah,
are y'all
definitely.
familiar with the 12? Sorry,
There you go.
I was going to ask, are y'all familiar with the 12 cell salts and how that works with the months that you were in the mother's womb compared to the months that you weren't, and what you could be low in as far as the cell salts? Calcium fluoride, you got calcium phosphate, and each one of these goes for each zodiac, right? Calcium fluoride, calcium phosphate, calcium sulfate, iron phosphate, magnesium phosphate, potassium chloride, potassium phosphate, potassium sulfate, sodium chloride, sodium phosphate, sodium sulfate, and silica. Now, depending
Those
on
are
the years you were,
Mm-hmm.
so if you were in your mother's womb from January up to September, those 3 months that you weren't are the ones that you may be deficient in, according to this holistic book that I bought about the 12 cell salts. So the 3 months that you're not in the womb are the ones you may be low on. So they have what they call cell salts that you can take. I think in a little bitty pill form that we take, one pill with all the 12 different. Yeah, I got it right here. It's this. Oh, well, no, never mind. This right here, bioplasma, is kind of what I take for my cell salts. Then there's different ones, and each one is for each month of the year. Right?
I always take bioplasma when I'm starting to feel like a little something creeping up in my throat, or allergies or something, and it just personally really helps balance, and it makes me feel, I almost always get back in alignment with the bioplasma.
Cool.
When did they start testing the spike protein? They don't, baby. They don't. There is no spike test. So they're doing nucleocapsid testing, which is looking at antibodies. They think, okay, if you have an antibody to spike protein, then you probably have spike protein. But we just talked about how the immune system is kind of getting jacked up in people, especially who have been injected. So it's really probably inaccurate way of looking at spike protein to look at the antibodies. We can try to extrapolate or guess. And that's what doctors are doing right now, who are actually keeping track of these things. And it's probably really a good guess, but we don't know for sure. So the best thing would be to do an actual counting of the spike protein, which they don't have available yet. On population, it was before the bioweapon was used. I don't think there would be spike protein from this bioweapon prior to 2020. Hormone balance, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because this is a serious key piece to why people have anemia, especially women. if you have something where you're having like really heavy bleeding, menstrual cycles, perimenopausal bleeds, bleeding in between cycles, we're talking about probably having a estrogen dominance, where you get so much estrogen in your body that the body bleeds, or you have like horrific, monthly bleeding, clotty, menstruation, stuff like that. That's a hormone issue. And that, any time that I'm doing a consultation with someone to help them with getting to the root of their anemia, we start with the foundations. Okay. Are you having a bowel movement every day? That's the first place to start if you're having hormone issue, in my opinion, because anything that's in your intestine goes through a membrane. That membrane is semi-permeable like all the time. So if you are putting extra estrogen, which causes heavy bleeding, it's a hormone that causes heavy bleeding. If it's too much in your blood, your body puts that into the intestines to get it out. But if you're not having a bowel movement every day, it's going to get reabsorbed back into your system. If you are not going every day, your body is absorbing water from the stool as well as waste products. So you're going to be even more dehydrated and have an even more difficult time. So we go back to the foundations. What's coming into the body? Water. What's coming out of the body? Should be every day, once a day, at least. Every day. If you are not having a BM every day, we can't work on, in my opinion, detoxification at all, because that's your chief way of detoxifying. You're going to flood the system if your detoxification pathways are not open. So hormone balance, we're looking at what's coming in hydration-wise, nutrition-wise. Are you sleeping? Your hormones will not be balanced if you're not sleeping. If you don't sleep, you have to run on something. And that's stress. It's stress hormones. And they mess up the balance for everything else. Cortisol and adrenaline and epinephrine mess everything else up. When you're in fight or flight all the time, then your hormone system, your endocrine system cannot operate as usual. It will not digest your food properly if you're in stress all the time. So, I'm not a doctor. I don't treat, prescribe, cure, or diagnose anything. I don't have to. The great physician is God, and he designed your body to heal itself. But he also designed your body to be taken care of and to be nurtured. And you were designed in his image to need to sleep. It's a blessing to get to sleep. The older I get, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, God, for sleep. Oh, thank you, God, for sleep. Thank you, God, for winter. He makes all things have to sleep. It's a recharge for us. And so, yeah, getting back to hormones, the balancing of hormones. When they're unbalanced, you're going to be more likely to be anemic. And unwinding all of that, going back to the very basic foundations of health: sleeping, eating, elimination, stress management. Very important.
Here's a book right here that Relation of the Mineral Salts of the Body to the Signs of the Zodiac by George W. Carey, and it explains how the mineral cell salt deficiency became. It's like $2 for this book. It used to be a little bit more expensive, but it's $2, and it'll show you how the cell salts in the body and the horoscope all come into.
I'm going to weigh in on that because this is awesome and I can't wait to buy a copy of that. I'm a very devout Christian and I live in the Bible Belt. And so there's like extra emphasis on avoiding even the occasion of sin through like horoscope reading or yoga and stuff like that can lead people astray. But I have done a lot of, in my studying of health, prana, chi, life force, so we call these things, are managed in classical systems, which are also interwoven into spiritual practices. Because the spirit, I believe the spirit is where, as your soul prospers, everything else will be what it needs to be. And I was praying one day and I said, God, what about our healing system for the West through Christ? Like, why don't we have, the Hindus have Ayurveda, and I believe that was inspired by God into them. I mean, that was 5,000 years ago. That way precedes Christ. And you see the pattern from what they knew in what the ancient Greeks knew and the Chinese, and then different, indigenous practices. Anyway, the early church, for even like over 1,000 years, knew about natal charts, knew that the stars that we're born under impact us in a very real way. And they were used and consulted, and it was not considered to be witchcraft or evil or, anything like that. It was just, this is a tool to use. Same thing with stones and gems and the healing powers of, a rock is a energy storage. I used to, have a greenhouse. You want to keep a greenhouse warm in the wintertime, one of the things you can do is put a rock in there. Why? The rock gets heated up by the sun and it holds energy. So rocks hold energy. That's not witchcraft. That's just physics. It's just nature.
I want to pile on here, okay? So
Pile on.
What Sierra's talking about is in physics is PE, potential energy. So if you talk about a battery, like a Tesla car has a battery, what the battery is doing is engaging through a difference in basically a pH level, potential energy and stored energy. And so what our heart does, which is a quantum producing device, it energizes your blood literally with electricity. Potassium is a primary conductor of that. It's one of the reasons it's so important. But every single cell in your body listens to your very powerful mouth. So scripture, even the canon says this, that the power of life and death lies across your tongue. That life and death is yours. That is your life and death. You and the people around you that are within the sound of your voice. So I'm going to try and say this carefully so we don't get in YouTube issues. When you go for a wellness check, you are consenting to a bunch of tests, which you have anxiety over. Oh man, I hope the tests come out okay. Well, you walked in there, your anxiety starts to overcome you, and every cell in your body is listening to your very powerful mouth. So when you walk out, when you say, where are you going? I'm going to the doctor to get my test results. I don't know if I'm sick or not. Well, yeah, yes, you do. Your body is telling you whether or not you are in good shape. And when you use your very powerful mouth to reinforce your fear of what might happen based on some wee beasties in your blood and some test that you can't verify with your own knowledge and eyes, that is a primary component of the dis-ease cycle. So, Sierra made a comment about your poop. That you're the way that you're listening to your body. You can hear it, you can smell it, you can engage with it. You know what you've done to yourself. If you ate too much of something and you don't feel well, eat less of that. But submitting yourself to the intention cycle, your stolen intention regarding your wellness, is the most powerful thing that you can do. The resonance of your voice is listened to by every cell in your body at a primal level. Every single cell in your body listens to your very powerful mouth. And people that know me know that if you ask me how my day is, I respond fantastic on purpose, or another day in paradise, or wow, it's just getting better by the minute. It's not a diatribe of things that might be wrong with me that I'm supposed to fear. And the answer is Western medicine's answer is give me something that I can bill a CPT code for so that I can justify my engagement with you. And breaking that cycle is the most powerful self-advocation for your health. Throat shock, exactly, Suzanne. But getting involved with your own wellness, with your very powerful mouth, with affirmations of positive engagement. Well, how are you feeling today? Well, I feel better today than I did yesterday, and I'll probably feel better tomorrow. That's about as close as you're going to get me to saying, wow, I feel like crap. I don't say that very often. And if I do, it's probably my fault, and it probably included Pendleton's. So there's, listen to your body. Use your very powerful mouth to direct your cellular structure, because that is an empowering cycle for your immune system. If the electricity of your nature and your spirit is towards health instead of self-condemnation of health, because you are trusting a third party that is not you, that is showing you tests that you can't really decipher, that is the primary departure out of the health matrix, in my opinion. You have to take control of your own health. And the first step towards that is using your very powerful mouth to reinforce your immune system that you are better, that you are stronger, that you are more capable. That's the Holy Spirit engagement with your chakra. And that's not hoo-ha. You are an electrical being. So make your health electrical. Engage with it. Give the energy to that system so that if you're not feeling well, you can say, wow, I think that should be better. And I'm going to speak truth over that I am going to be better.
It takes radical self-responsibility to do that. If you're looking for a savior, you have a savior. It's none of us. Okay. You are, the most powerful person in your life. Other people don't hold the answer for you. God has the answer for you. And that's a total mind shift. Yes, even those who are like very, very ill, even those who are giving birth. Birth is not an illness, of course, but, there's ancient fear embedded in childbirth. When you have such high stakes, you have a lot to lose potentially. But no doctor makes that go smoothly. In the United States, our medical system, the most expensive medical system in the world, we have more women and babies unalive in this country than any other industrialized nation on earth. You have a better outcome if you live in Estonia. Okay, second world nations are far ahead of us. So the answer doesn't lie in the white coats. Okay? The answer lies inside of you. And that doesn't mean that you can't use a guide. Like, oh my gosh, use guides. Use people to help you. People who are, more helpful friends than others. And sometimes that is a doctor. Sometimes that is a midwife. Sometimes that is somebody inside of the system. I'm not saying never, ever, ever use the system. It's just a change of the relationship that you have in reclaiming your power and your responsibility to yourself and to your health. And that can feel very, very scary at first. And I recognize that. I had the stent put in my right cardiac artery, left side completely closed. I'm on blood thinners. I have had my period since surgery back in March. Usually people who are having heart surgeries no longer have a menstruation. So you must be very young for having all these heart problems. I'm sorry that's happening to you. Anytime there's a problem with the heart, or a heart surgery, the heart is endocrine tissue. And when I was in nursing school about 15 years ago, they were just starting to figure that out. It was something like the cardiac nurses were like, yeah, there's something going on. And they kind of hinted to it. We think that there's something very significant about heart surgery messing people up with their emotional state. And, of course, it's not only the fact that it is endocrine tissue that produces hormones, but, your heart is the power of your body, and that gets disrupted pretty significantly with a heart surgery. So, of course, it's not medical advice, but, just placing your hands over your heart and thanking God for life. Whatever you can spend time on gratitude with your hands on your heart can really help with feeling better. Let's see, there was something else I wanted to look at. I will say one of the really big missions that I see in this is an opportunity to help people heal anemia. I did produce a book myself. It's not released yet. Hoping to release it as a masterclass or a book club so that you can DIY your healing. See how much you need. You may be someone like me who is able to tinker here, adjust this, alter that. I read somebody said something about fermented food in the chat. Yeah, fermented food, very, very important for absorbing nutrition. You might be someone who's able to tweak a little here, a little there, and ta-da, now you're making blood again. But for other people, you may need extra help. So what this book is designed to do is guide you through the process of blood being made. Understand, we start at looking at food on the plate and how our body starts to digest and absorb it from the time it is on the plate into our mouth through the entire GI system. And all the different places where you could have something going on that may need adjustment. In most places, you don't have to have a doctor order labs for you. You can do it for yourself. You can take radical responsibility for your health. This is not a replacement for medical care if you're like having palpitations and fainting and serious issues. But by all means, please seek medical attention. But if you're someone who has had, my background was that I was told it was completely normal that my hemoglobin was always 10.5 or 11. And that it was completely normal that I was taking iron pills and my hemoglobin was still low. Okay, that's false. No, my hemoglobin should have not been low. And so this is not just a small, portion of my life from having babies. It was something that has been going on for years for me. And I think for a lot of people there is, I've read about parasites in the chat here. Yeah, there can be parasitic activity where they're actually just sucking your blood from, there's so much. And the thing is that it's probably a little bit of a lot of different things. And you tweak a little here, you see what feels right and doable. You know, it has to be actually doable for you. You don't have to do all the steps. You don't have to do all the things. This is not a perfect, you know, we're not going to let perfectionism get in the way. It's what realistic things can you do to help your body improve your blood supply. So the name of my book is the first volume. It's called Genetic Sovereignty. And I call it Genetic Sovereignty because specifically of the vaccine issue. But, you know, it's, if we own our blood. And when they inject us with artificial genes, they've injected us with something that's been patented, and they own that patent on that gene. So this is another show topic, but this was the opening to that as a normal idea or concept or a household belief that it's okay to get genetically modified as a person, as a human being. And as somebody of faith, I say, no, it's not okay because God made my genome. In general, that's not acceptable. And I'm not going to put anybody under the law and say, under no circumstance, thou shalt not alter thy DNA. I'm not going to put anybody under the law because I don't want to live under the law. I got freed through the blood of Jesus to not have to be under the law. But I will say it, you know, the same thing about gene modification as I say about anything else, like, you know, alcohol or marijuana or something like that. You know, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And only in extreme and rare circumstances should this be part of somebody's life. Extremely judicious use of these technologies. Not everybody just go to, you know, Operation Stargate announced 2 days into President Trump's presidency, where they want to put mRNA vaccines in people for cancer. Where they will edit you. You will be going to be, their plans are to edit you all the time, like an iPhone, okay? Or whatever, you know, Google does. They update. Your computer needs to update, Windows updates. That's what they want to do to you. And once they do that, once they inject their genetic codes into your body, they own that code, my love. And if you don't own your blood, what are you? You're a slave. So genetic sovereignty is the owning of our own blood. We have to reclaim and own our own blood, own our freedom, and take serious and radical responsibility for our health. Not so that we can be a separate, pure entity, but so that we can help others around us and so that we can have a future for humanity where, you know, the image of God carries on and we're not just cyborgs. So if you'd like to stay up with my work, we do a lot of legislative work as well. Please, you know, become a subscriber on my Substack. It's thereconciliation.org is my website. And that's how I'll announce anything that I'm able to put out as far as like a masterclass. But stay up with me. I'm throttled. I'm fully throttled from any kind of social media platform. I was doing really well with TikTok for a long time. I was getting like over 1,000 views on my mostly silly videos. And now I don't get any. I get like 70 views. Because I connect.
Sorry. Can you spell out your website, Substack? What? Can you?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm going to put it on the banner real quick.
Okay. The Reconciliation. R. Yeah, CILLIATION.
So DREC.
I'm gonna type it for you. Hold on.
CRECON.
.org.
TONCILLATION, thereconciliation.org.
.org.
Gotcha.
1L. Yeah. It's
Oh,
it's just a Substack, but my stuff does not get shared. Like, you have to physically share it. I am just throttled on everything. And that's the same thing for anybody. Any of the other companies that are involved in this are completely throttled. Where we're
that's
just we're
correct.
mhm.
1L.
1L. Okay, gotcha. I thought I heard that. Thank you, Kim.
She put it in the private chat.
Okay.
Someone said something about that's awesome, doing fermentation of vegetables and kombucha. Just be careful with the kombucha, because it can don't drink it if it tastes bad. That's a more tricky one in my experience, but even just soaking your food, if you can soak your food a little bit. And here's the thing, y'all, please don't get caught up in like, oh, I can't eat that nut because I didn't soak it, or I can't eat whole grains because they have phytic acid. I go into all of that. We're talking like, first of all, vitamin C will counteract the effects of the phytic acid. It's more so about balancing what you're eating than trying to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. So have a realistic expectation, because a lot of people have this perfectionism thing where if I can't make it perfectly, I'm just not going to do it because I want it to be right. And it's like, you know what? Focus on the one little thing that you're doing right instead of this humongous, overwhelming task. So, if you're eating a handful of nuts and you didn't get to soak them first, eat you an orange with it, okay? It will help to break down any anti-nutrients, phytic acid, etc. Fermentation is best. If you can do fermentation, fabulous. But maybe you can't do fermentation. You can only do soaking. Okay, great. Do what you can do. Start small, like starting with the fermented vegetables like kimchi. That's super, super fun to do. And then work out from there. Or sourdough. Get really good at one thing and then add in the next. Or find friends that you can trade with, where, you really like making sourdough, but you hate making kimchi. Okay, trade, or yogurt, whatever it is. Share the burden with each other. That's what we used to do. In agricultural communities, especially.
That's a great idea. I can make the kimchi. I make kimchi, not kimchi.
You make kimchi. I love it.
Yes. It's great too.
So we're at the 2-hour mark. I know you have children, Sierra. I really appreciate you coming on tonight. Unless you have anything else or anybody else has anything, we could end it right here. I really appreciate you coming on tonight with us and sharing your knowledge and your faith and your journey. And I want to really also send a big thank you to Kim for making this connection for us here at the Truth Train Tribe. So I really appreciate it. Welcome to the tribe, Sierra, and we look forward really to hearing from you more in the future. And God bless you and your family and your children. They got an amazing mother.
Yes,
It
they
is
do.
not me who's amazing, but he who lives inside of me. And I will definitely be tuning in anytime that I can. It's rare that I have I have the opportunity, but when I'm in the car, that's when I do my podcast catching up. And this is definitely one that I'll be listening to way more often. I love and appreciated so much Kim hooking me up with you guys. And please pray for me. Yeah, please pray for me. This is the week of the relic of Saint Januarius, or Januarius, who is this relic of his. He was decapitated for his love of Christ, and his blood was taken and put into a vessel, and it liquefies on the anniversary of his death, which is on the 19th this week. So it's a big week for me, and remembering, we are in a long story, friends. We are in a very long story that's been going on for thousands of years and continues to be, and we are here occupying, bringing the light, keeping the fire inside of all of us. And so thanks for all that you do to make sure that the light and the fire stays in all of your listeners. And thanks for being a part of the war.
Thank you. Again, check her out at thereconciliation.org. You've got the link at the bottom. We're going to share that in the chats as well. Please connect with her, and hope everybody has an amazing rest of their night or day, depending on when you're listening to this. Please share this out with your family members that may need to hear this, somebody in need. So really appreciate everyone's time tonight. And we're going to go ahead and close it out. Anybody else have anything else? Nadine, Kim, or Bird?
Just thank you for being so honest. So you really, especially coming from healthcare, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to say something. Please, everybody, go to her link there and subscribe to her Substack. It would help her very much. Thank you.
I'll be sharing it out on all the platforms.
Great.
Sierra, I would like to thank you for pulling Gandalf's chain and getting him in here tonight and bantering with him back and forth. He has wanted to do this show for a long time. So I appreciate you answering that call and coming in here tonight. Just awesomeness.
Cool. That is so great.
And with
Thank
that,
you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bye.
And with that, we'll close out. Love and light and knowledge.
Good
Salt and
night,
light.
everyone.
Say that again.
Salt and light.
There you go.
Yay.
Good night.
I was born within my bones. Let it shine, let it rise. I was born with rhythm in my bones, truth in my tongue, fire in my feet, and a song in my spirit that won't sit still. is to